member, according to agreeable to the rules and regulations of the Constitution and laws of the state of New Hampshire. This I do under pains and penalties of perjury. You would sign your papers and I will take them.
A great civics lesson.
Very great civics lesson. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
As it is 6 o'clock, it is my pleasure to call this meeting to order as it is after the March vote. This is the opportunity for the superintendent to call the meeting to order because shortly the board will be electing a chair for the coming year. So to start, we are going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag is over that way. If everybody can turn. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands for the nation of all members of the board are present. And so to start this evening, I would ask for motions and a second for nomination of chair. Mr. Charlie Hanson.
I would like to move Lisa Merrill for chair.
I would second.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations for chair? Hearing no other nominations for chair, the board needs to vote on Mrs. Merrill as chair of the Interlakes School Board for the coming year.
All those in favor?
All those in favor? Perfect.
Aye.
Perfect. So, Mrs. Merrill, it is my pleasure to turn it over to you.
Thank you. Okay, so I'd like to seek a motion for the school board vice chair position.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Don.
I nominate Mark Billy.
Okay,
Second.
okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion to elect the secretary of the school board. Charlie? I would like to,
I'll second that.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Student recognition, destination imagination teams.
Yay.
We are so excited tonight to bring forward our Destination Imagination teams who have worked incredibly hard this year and met with wonderful, wonderful success, including learning lots of perseverance through a complicated year. So I'm going to turn things over to Mr. Bryant to start. He's going to talk about Destination Imagination, and then we're going to do some celebrating.
I'm going to sit to block anybody's view. First, I'd just like to start before I get into the slide presentation. I really would like to thank Meg Haven. She's our district DI coordinator who oversees not just the elementary, but the middle high school as well. Just makes it seamless between, the job for us administrators, with coaches, with the kids, with the parents. So thank you for all your efforts, especially behind the scenes. So just a little bit about this year, DI or Destination Imagination. It's really all about collaborative problem solving, giving our learners, our students opportunities to do that in fun and exciting ways. So they really compete in 5 different types of categories, from fine arts, science, engineering. There's an improv component, and there's also a community service component to that. This year, we are fortunate enough to have 7 teams, 5 at ILES and 2 from the middle high school in this year's competitions. They competed at Souhegan High School on Sunday, March 13th. Really, things are broken down into 2 different aspects. There's the central challenge, and this is what they work on for months, meeting with their coaches on a weekly basis, one if not several times a week, to develop, to plan, to solve, to just really work on those communication skills, but really collaborate as teams in doing that. The second component to that is there's this instant challenge, and they don't get that until the day of the competition. And as a team, they have usually 8 minutes or less to have to come up with those and use those same skills that they had been developing the months that led up to that, to do that. All teams this year were very successful. They did an amazing job, again, working together, the problem-solving component for writing scripts, building sets, researching, learning, but most of all, I think that they would all say that they had fun in doing that as well. And I'd be remiss too, and we'll talk about that, but the time and effort that the coaches put into this after school, the communication, the meeting with students too. It takes that component to make things work as well. And as we go through this, we'll meet the teams, we'll meet the coaches as well. And then, not to put anybody on the spot, but if any of the coaches would like to speak on their team's behalf, you certainly can. And if not, you know, that's fine as well. That's fine. So moving forward, one of our teams, Team Science, coached by Natalie Lyons. She was unable to be here tonight with us, but her students included Aubrey O'Neill, Henry Teehee, Vivian Freeman, Ashton Hibbert, and Levi Guy. Their team challenge was called Monster Manners. And this year they were in a younger group category, so they weren't competing this year for places within the challenge. It was more, again, about just, you know, figuring out what DI was all about and start that process.
Got somebody with his hand.
Are we gonna play the videos?
No.
Not tonight. Not tonight.
Good question. though.
Yeah,
I was
I like
wondering
that.
the same thing.
Ready to be on it. Mrs. Courier's team, Mary Kate Courier, she's here. Thank you, Mary Kate, for, again, your efforts. Students including Kaya Orr, Wesley Clapp, Declan McCann, Logan Courier, Riel Richards, Caleb Guide, and Violet Vader. Their team challenge was Tricky Tales this year, and they finished this year with 11th place finish.
I have a lot of teams, right?
A lot of teams. A lot of teams.
For that team?
Yes.
Can they see it?
Students, if you're part of this team, students. Anybody here from Miss Lyons' team here tonight? Want to slide back to you? Mr. James team, Mr. Gonzalez, Harper Yolda, Alex Graper, Casey Paquin, Wyatt Fry, and Noah O'Neill. Their team challenge was up close, and they had a 5th place finish this year. No, Mr. Gonzalez, I don't see him here with us tonight, but are any of the students here from that team? Stand. All right. The fuzzy purple dinos. You gotta give some credit for the name. Coach Rebecca Seek, I did see Ms. Seek here. Again, thank you for all your time and effort as well. Students included Athena Burr, Taylor Mills, and Evie Champagne. Their challenge was Festival Frenzy, and they had a 4th place finish this year. And it's been a good quick present. Please stand up. Stand
Take
up.
a moment in the side.
Oh, sorry. They were 3rd. 3rd. All right. Sorry. I'll get that in the edits. And last but not least, the Blue Laser. Yes, that is the Blue Laser Tigers. I had to make sure I said that.
That's me.
Sorry, no worries. Coach Craig Carpenter is here with us. Trying to give me a Carpenter. Please stand up. Cooper Heyman, Owen McGurkin, Addison Neidhart, Wyatt Turgeon, Eva Larson, Dylan Stevenson, and Beatrice Cartier. If you're here, please take a bow. Their team and they also qualified to go to the Globals in Kansas City, Missouri this year. They took 1st place, whole thing. Yeah. You want to go, buddy, you and I. Let's make it happen. Do any of the coaches, I open it up to you, any of the coaches want to say just a few words about the experience or about your teams?
I just think that I learned just as much as my teammates did and was very grateful to have the opportunity. And I think I'm gonna enjoy DI as hopefully my team does for a long time. So then we're up to.
Yeah. And also, you have to learn from your mistakes to get it right.
Right.
Any other coaches? With that, I will pass the baton. Whatever you want to call it.
It's a clicker.
Yeah.
Good evening. We had two teams at ILMHS that competed. We have Miss Dubois' team. Coach was Miss Dubois. She's not here this evening. Their parent volunteer was Miss Nesbitt. Riley Toole was the student appraiser. The group was Gracie Arcan, Hannah Nesbitt, Riley Jordan, Thea Wright, and Katie Skidova. And they had the challenge Turkey Tails as well, and they came in third place and also qualified to go to Globals this year. Wow. And we had Team Jetpack, which was Miss Zarka's team. And again, the appraiser was Riley Toole. The students were Peyton Hoyt, Eloise Moore, Jada Wesson, Alexis Dow, and Cami Lamar. And their challenge was also Turkey Tails, and they came in fourth place and also qualified for Globals. And then these are just a couple pictures of them in action with some of the improv work that they did with Turkey Tails.
We
Would you like
appreciate
to?
the chance to honor the certificates for each of the students. I don't know how you'd like to distribute those.
Yeah, so for all the students in recognition for all of your hard work, if your coach is here tonight, they have your certificates that they can hand to you on the way out. And if your coach is not here, we can make sure you get that for tomorrow. But again, we would like to thank all of the parents for the pickups and the rides home. We would like to thank the coaches, especially all of the students, learners, for all of your hard work, your dedication, and your ability to collaborate and just be leaders for our school. We greatly appreciate you. So thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. And congratulations, everyone. You did a
Great
great
job.
job. So, business of the board, committee assignment interests. In your packet is attachment 1. And Mary, did you want to?
So attachment 1 outlines the various committees. Typically, what the board has done in the past is people express, you don't have to do assignments this evening, but you could express to Chair Merrill your interests. Often the chair will firm up the committees following the chance to. If there's any questions on what the committees are,
I already got marks.
people have experienced in the
Check
past.
them off if you want.
Just a quick question. Do we have rough dates for negotiations?
So the ILEA negotiations will be beginning for next year. So oftentimes that typically would be September through January. Hopefully not quite that long, but that is certainly, it's a big time commitment, I would say. The ILEA negotiations is probably the most significant time commitment, and maybe the policy committee as well.
Thank you.
Okay, so just, send me an email or mark this up, submit it.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
School board meeting schedule, Mrs. Moriarty,
So
attachment
you
number
have
2.
the schedule in your packet, attachment number 2. And this is following the typical pattern for the school board meetings. You'll notice that in January, there is a to be determined. That's usually a work session related to the budget. But everything is really following what typically the board has done. Typically, the board has not met in July unless kind of has left it as if there's an emergency or something that needs addressing.
Can I have a motion to approve it?
Second.
All those in favor of approving it as presented? Okay, we have public comments section. Any public comment today? Okay, any from the,
I don't have it.
moving right along, the Interlakes student board representative update, Riley?
Hi, everyone. It's been a while. So thank you, by the way, to all the principals who have so graciously sent this information to me. I really like working with all of them to find out what's going on. And I know at this school, it's easy to find out what's happening on my own school, but definitely appreciate you providing Mr. Helger as well sent that information. So starting with ILES, it's very exciting. Sixth grade is gearing up for their annual trip to Camp Mare Vista Education Center in Tufton Borough. This is a very unique opportunity for elementary students moving up from the elementary school to the high school to kind of mingle, get to know each other better. And then it's also a chance for sandwich students and ILES students to kind of meet each other as well before they start their first day of school. And they're kicking off the planning with their meeting with the representatives from Mare Vista starting April 5th. So it's coming up soon, it's super exciting. I remember going on that trip myself. From SCS tonight, Plymouth State University's Tiger collaboration happened at the Sandwich Central School last week. They were dedicated to helping students, parents, and teachers deal with social issues we see in our youth today. And I remember a long time ago, they came to our school too, and I just remember how enthusiastic they were. They were so happy. They really helped us. And they do this by performing for schools around all the England. They're a theater group, so they do a lot of great performances. And then also at SCS, the sixth grade is planning for their trip to Washington, D.C. and Philadelphia, April 12th through April 15th. Kind of jealous, but that's fine. And then here at the high school, we have the underclassmen, the juniors, sophomores, and freshmen are actually taking their SATs and PSATs starting tomorrow. Don't have school that day for me, so now it's coming tomorrow. And then also, where I was late, we were rehearsing for Wizard of Oz, and that's coming up starting next week, April 1st and April 2nd. We've been working since February, the beginning of February, to put the show together, and it's a collaboration of 4th graders all the way up through 12th grade. And yeah, that's next week on Friday and Saturday. This is actually our first full force production since before COVID. January 2020 was our last show that we put on full. So it's very exciting to get this going. And then also spring athletics began. I know I've heard a lot of people talking about practices. They're super excited about games, super motivated about them. So that's exciting. And then the robotics team, super amazing group. The Laker Bots are preparing for their competition at Pease International Airport from April 1st to April 3rd. So far, they've already competed in Salem. Went very well for them. And then they also teamed up with the ILES Lego team, Lego Robotics team, go over to Sandwich, get their team started for Lego Robotics, and just a great collaboration among all the schools there. So that's what I have for you tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks, Riley.
That was great. Okay, well, we're gonna move this up, the discussion on the Spain trip that is in the addendum section. So if you refer to that attachment, and Mrs. Moriarty, if you could.
And I think Senora Judge is here.
She is, yes.
Excellent. And I'll start by, I was going to say accidentally bonjour, but buenos dias.
Très bien.
So long ago and far away, the board approved this trip, but it was originally going to be in Peru, and it was going to be in April 2020. And certainly life has changed, and a decision was made to shift from Peru to Spain, just in terms of COVID precautions and so forth, Spain, Europe seems to be maybe a better option. And then most recently, the incidents or invasion in Ukraine that has certainly raised, our level of concern. We have, Senora Judge has met with the organizers of the trip, which is Students Love to Travel, has met with the parents last evening to check in with them and to see how people are feeling about continuing to travel. And, at this stage, families are feeling comfortable as well as the organizers of the trip. And my understanding is they also have some of their own children who are traveling. So they're not only looking at it from a company perspective, they're looking at it from, their own family being part of that. I think at this stage, our recommendation would be to continue to move forward. There is an option for families to, they could choose to do a option this summer, which is a summer program that would not be with the school, but it would be with Students Love to Travel. That would be to Costa Rica. They also, a requirement that the travel company does require is that people do have the cancel for any reason insurance, which, again, makes that decision a little easier to make financially. So we wanted to at least bring it forward. Senora Judge has the itinerary, and maybe if you want to walk people through the itinerary.
This is the program overview that the company sends us. It has the list of travelers on the first page. As you dig into it a little bit more, it has the agenda, our schedule for which cities we're going to be in and our booked activities. Because the students of travel, the students do get to choose what they do every day. Like they might, choose to eat in one place or want to see a different site. So there is some flexibility with things that are not booked, but it has those things that are booked. And then as we dig in a little bit more, it has the flight numbers and times for that. And all the hotels are listed on the last 2 pages. So if anybody feels, they want to go see exactly where we're going to be. We are in southern Spain, in Seville, Granada, and Cordoba. So geographically, it's probably as far away from Russia as you could be in Europe and still be in Europe. And then, as Ms. Moriarty mentioned, the co-directors, one of their wives is taking a group from Exeter High School. They will be in the same area as we are, just a day ahead of us on the itinerary. And then the other co-director is leading a group to Portugal. So the company does have representatives there in Europe with us who are the directors of the company while it's all going on. Are there any other questions or things you'd like me to address specifically?
Spain does require vaccination to enter the country from the U.S. So
And
from a
negative
COVID,
COVID tests going in and out.
so from a COVID standpoint, I think we feel that it's part of operationalizing living with COVID, learning to travel with it. Senora Judge is a very experienced traveler. And I know that the rapport that you have with Students Love to Travel has been very positive. I have to say I've been impressed with them as a company in terms of they really recognize they're traveling with students. Sometimes there are tour companies that are all about the tour and selling trips. This seems to be a company that is very much focused on recognizing they're taking primarily adolescents abroad and that they have a high degree of respect for that responsibility.
May I ask, I have 2 questions, I guess. I missed what you said about potential for a refund if the trip doesn't get taken. So can you describe that again?
Do you want to discuss how the insurance works?
Sure. So Students Love Travel has always required this cancel for any reason insurance, which means the students get 75% back of what they paid up until 3 days before the trip. So Students Love Travel, in coordination with their insurance company,
when we canceled Peru, and that was happening to everybody everywhere in the world at the time, so it wasn't anything unusual, but they also stepped in and offered to give students back money if we rebooked another trip. So very few families lost very much money. I would say $300 maybe on a $3,000 trip is the most anybody lost. In addition, they offer to match the funds that were lost. So the students that are traveling, there's 3 of them that are going with us this spring that were supposed to go to Peru. They were able to, Students of Travel gave them an extra, I think it was about $500 or $600 towards their trip this year.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so if this were to be canceled and if Students of Travel said, or the State Department or you said, we're not doing this, I know that the insurance would cover most of it and the families would probably lose about $700 per traveler out of a little over 3,000.
And the State Department's advisory, I would interpret as being related to COVID.
That was in December, though. I
And it was
saw that.
December
So-
2021,
Yeah.
so it's, has not been updated. It did say to use caution relative to civil unrest and terrorism, but that did not seem to be what made it a level 4. It seemed to be COVID that made it a level.
My second question is about, you had mentioned that you need a COVID test to get out of Spain back here. What's the insurance for that? If the student has to stay, who stays? How
So
does that
the
work?
chaperones have discussed this, and if a female tests positive while we're there, I would stay, and if a male tests positive, then Jeff Langevin would stay. Insurance, the cancel for any reason insurance that the travel organization required us to buy covers the hotel rooms and the staying in Spain, the cost that would be incurred because of that. So then we would stay back with that one, hopefully 0 students. We wouldn't have to stay
Yeah.
back, but with 1 or 2 students if that happened and wait until they were permitted to come back to the United States.
Do we know what the days of quarantine are in Spain for that nowadays? Somebody says.
This is the strange thing. We do not need COVID tests to get into Spain. We need
Yeah.
them to come back to the United
Yeah.
States. So it's the US's regulations.
Okay,
And I'm not really sure what the number is right now. I want to say 10 days, but I'm not positive, or a negative test.
right. Okay,
So,
all right. And just so we know, the parents will all know this and we'll have it written down before, the trip's taken, right? To
Yes.
understand all
Yep.
those things. Okay, very good. Thank you.
So I didn't put a motion on, but I don't know, it might be just helpful for the board to reaffirm that you're comfortable with the strict proceeding. That just one of
I
these
think it's fine.
be appreciated.
Does anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve this trip.
Second.
All those in favor?
And I would like to say thank you to Senora Judge.
Yes.
thank you.
It
guys,
takes
really.
courage,
Great.
it takes courage to do a field trip.
Yeah.
It takes something really deep to get on a plane and travel across the Atlantic. And just the experience you bring to our students is amazing and it really should be recognized.
Well, I'm looking forward to coming back and presenting all our wonderful experiences to you in May. So,
That's awesome. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
How do you say safe travels in Spanish?
buen viaje.
Minute.
Sorry. Okay, minutes. Motion to approve the minutes from February 8th, regular board meeting and public hearing. Charlie, Howard.
Howard second.
are there any questions? Go ahead, Howard.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
if I could, I need to find my place. I have found,
Okay.
as a child, my favorite television character was the Count. So, I really have to make, we've recognized these donations more formally. But I have the habit of adding them all up. We received in donation last board meeting on February 8th. $9,751 from this community. That is a humbling amount of money.
I agree.
Thank you.
Thank you. Amy.
Oh, quick question. Item 9, letter E, warrant article number 7. Maybe I'm confused, but I thought that was voted down, not voted carry.
As amended. I think it was as adding the amendment at the end. is
What was
how
the
it should
amendment? The amendment was that it was advisory.
The legal counsel has advised that this is a non-binding advisory article.
That was what was
It was
added.
just to
That
put that
was
language
added
on the
to the-
warrant.
So
That was to
just
put the language
that
on
was
the
just to put the
warrant.
language on the warrant.
You're referring to, I believe, the annual school district. meeting.
Right.
It did not pass.
Right.
The article,
Okay.
but this was the.
This was
prior
just
to-
adding
this was-
the,
This was
Thank
just
you.
adding. Yeah. Okay.
next one.
Okay, so do we have all those in favor of the minutes? Okay, special meeting, February 11th. Motion to approve the minutes of the February 11th special board meeting.
So moved. Second.
Okay. Any discussion on that?
I have any notes
I don't-
here. Oh, I'm good.
Okay. All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
I'm gonna abstain.
Okay. So, special meeting, March 6th. Motion to approve the minutes of the March 6th special board meeting.
Second.
Mark, any further discussion on those? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye. I'll abstain.
Okay, Charlie, abstain. Current bills payable. General operating expenses. Attachment 6.
It is.
Records.
Pages.
Yeah,
No questions.
motion to pay the bills, manifest 3018.
So moved.
Mark? Nancy? Any questions? Go ahead.
I do. Trish, for staff member 102063, what room was that for, or what school got that?
I'm sorry. Check number, I'm sorry.
102063. Mr. Aubin Woodward.
Fifth one down
Oh,
on
that, those were, they're being installed throughout the school. It started with the gym, auditorium lobby, those bathrooms there.
Okay,
They're working their way through the whole first floor. And it's an ongoing project throughout, across the district. The board encumbered money from the end of the year for that.
okay.
They're very nice things.
Yeah.
I can
If
tell you
you'd
that.
like to, on the behalf, certainly put you by the gym and can see the bill beautiful.
Okay, excellent. And then the second one, 102143, that's for the solar system maintenance. Is that gonna be a yearly item, or is that special maintenance?
What was the number, Craig?
102143.
We had some issues with this, with the system. And so revision came into repair and
Okay,
maintenance.
so that was a repair.
But that was the solar water,
Water,
correct?
yeah.
Not solar electric.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
all those in favor of paying the bills?
Aye.
Okay, superintendent, assistant superintendent report, staffing update.
So we are still shy 2 teachers, the reading teacher and the Laker Learning Lab. And certainly we have revamped things so that students are getting support in different ways, and don't plan to see those positions being filled by the end of the school year. We are certainly trying to advertise for next school year. Paraeducators, we are at 12, that we are still down. We started the year at 13. We peaked at 15. Last month we were 11, and now we're 12. So we have been using Indeed, and we are getting traffic, but we aren't getting we're getting limited fits. We're finding that there's a lot of people that apply for positions, but then don't follow through. It seems to be, indeed, you get a lot of people who will indicate interest, but then not follow through on actually moving forward with the position. We are currently down 2 custodians. That is higher. The rest, previously, we've been at 1 short. We are short 2. Food service, we're maintaining at 1. Bus drivers, like last month, we are down 2, which is better than when we started the year at 4. So that is some improvement.
Question?
Yes.
We've had a couple of candid conversations about whether or not we're going to do anything. This teacher shortage, paraeducation shortage is not going away. So was just hoping that we could have a conversation about how we might do something different this year in an effort to try and recruit. We've got 2 top teaching schools in the state, and maybe being more proactive might put us in a better position.
And we have been trying to work with Plymouth State on the hope of being able to go up there and do some direct marketing. And I know that they were looking at that. I think they had put things on hold because of COVID, so some of their job fairs, but those are places that I do think if we can be in a student union building, I think that is helpful. But I will say, indeed, we're at least getting more responses. It would be nice if we were getting responses that were, all the way over the finish line.
Right.
So.
Still not a lot of luck with school ed jobs.
It seems like for paraeducators, it really seems like people are on Indeed. Again, not necessarily following all the way through. I would say for teachers right now, ed jobs, that is a natural place teachers are going in the spring to look for positions. And I think we have some positions to present tonight to fill some vacancies, which is good. And in early, it's nice that we're being able to do some hiring prior to people signing contracts, because that eliminates that hurdle of trying to have somebody released from a contract. But paraeducators continues to be I would say that's the nut we got to figure out how to crack, because that's where we need that help, and we need people to want to come back and do that work.
You say come back.
It seems like we were in a much better position before COVID. And I don't know if I do know for some people, COVID restrictions.
Sure, certainly.
People didn't want to be in an environment where you had a high degree of interaction. I think society is adjusting back to some level of normalcy. So our hope, might be that this spring, people might start looking ahead to next year.
We should send spring letters out too. Come on back.
That's right. How can we recruit you back?
Thank you. Yes, Nancy.
This isn't a directly related question, but the bus driver situation reminded me. The contract that we just re-upped with First Student, they cover the cost of fuel for those buses, right?
Correct. We are very fortunate. Do you want to speak to
There is no inflation clause with regards to fuel oil, so it's on that.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, but we don't need them to fail.
And we had a 3% increase over each year for the next 3 years. I did happen to see another school district in the area with the same provider at 8%. So I feel like we did pretty well.
Yes. 3% isn't even close.
Okay. School student problem identification and resolution of issues together, school spirit program. Mrs. Moriarty and Dr. Downing.
So this is a hard topic to talk about because it's incredibly concerning, and one that we need to air so that we can improve. We have seen this school year at the middle high school an increase in racist, anti-Semitic, homophobic language, actions, primarily around social media. They are concerning. I think people will recall that in December we had a number of things that were coming up. I have to commend Dr. Downing and Mr. Femia for, really digging in very deeply to try to address those issues. But they are deep issues that take time. Students are being held accountable for that behavior, but it is feeling like there is some, systemic issues that we need to try to get to the root of. Media today, there was a great presentation that Dr. Downing had organized with the Internet Crimes Against Children, social media, a predator's playground. The analogy they use is, as a parent, if you took your kid to the playground, you had a pretty good close eye on what they were doing. And if there was a stranger that came up to them, you were stepping in, or, you had a clear idea of the perimeter you were working within. Social media today is the world, is the playground. And there are people out there with, poor intentions and a lot of behaviors that I would say, I do think some of it is a reality of probably the spring of 2020 when we went remote. I think that there were some students who, found themselves online and going down rabbit holes and being exposed to certain things that, has just festered in different ways. So we are trying to do the deep work. The part on last Thursday was to do some educating for parents. That was recorded. And is that available on?
Yes, the link, I shared the link on Alma with all of our parents and our staff, and it's also live on our Facebook page. So anybody that clicks on that link has access to the recorded video.
Right, which it was, I found it to be a very informative presentation. So we hope that families, if they weren't able to, access it that evening, we did live stream it as well, that it is a solid hour, but I think it is a healthy hour that really does raise awareness. And I think will help families to recognize that, a phone is really a lot of access, and without somebody there to help supervise, kids can find themselves in some very difficult environments. So the next step is the School Spirit Program, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Downing to talk about that.
Yes, so part of the targeted approach to some of the issues that we uncovered in December, and then some other issues that have bubbled since some increased use of racial slurs and other pieces that have us concerned, has sparked some, research on everybody's part to look into having some facilitation and some hopefully deep work with students to work on what it is that is creating this problem and what we can do to solve it moving forward. So I've been working with the Department of Justice with this program, the Spirit Program, which is all about involving student groups from the school with community facilitators to talk through the problems, identify the problems, and then come up with ways to create a student body that's a little bit more in tune to each other, that accepts diversity, and that releases some of the tension that we're experiencing with some of the racial and homophobic pieces that we've kind of seen emerge over the last few months. So we already had our first meeting with Michael from CST, which is the portion of the Department of Justice that we're working with. We're meeting again on the 28th, myself, the DOJ, and then the group of teacher volunteers, and we're going to, at that meeting, figure out what we're going to do for student recruitment. We need approximately 40 to 50 students, which is, in a school our size, that's a really big number. And because the work, we need a large amount of time dedicated to this work, and we need students that are going to see it through. I'm going to cast the net far and wide, and we're going to hope that we have really good sampling from our entire student body and as much involvement as we can get, so that the groups can be diverse, and so that we have enough students to help us kind of spread the word about the work, and then work with us on the site council. So this work starts, we're just digging, scratching the surface this year. On the 28th, we'll meet again. We'll then get our student groups, and then in late May, we'll be meeting all day on a Saturday with the student groups and the community facilitators, where we will then move into our first plan for our first site council meeting, and that site council meeting will likely happen real big time crunch in early June before we get out of here, so that we can then make a targeted plan for the following school year for the group coming back and what that will look like. So this is going to be something that will likely be in the works for the next few years. This isn't work that will be done, within this school year or even the next school year, but just more about spreading awareness and coming up with strategies to kind of combat the hateful language and the behavior that we've seen this year. And that's where we're at in that process.
Answer the question, I guess. Sounds like a great plan. And you have just one meeting on a Saturday, or will there be multiple?
So what's going to happen is we're going to divide the Saturday into essentially two pieces, and we're going to have all of the students, so all 40 or 50 of our student volunteers at that one meeting. At that meeting, we make the plan for the site council meeting, which will then happen in June. And the site council meeting is the first meeting that we have with the designated student groups, where they would then at that point be able to address the student body and start digging into kind of some of the problems. There's surveys involved. There's a lot of pieces that will get kind of mobilized once that student group is chosen and we have that first meeting.
It sounds like a pretty extensive Saturday, right?
It will be a long day.
Yeah, so I guess my question, Tricia, Mary, do we have funds for a Saturday to provide food and
We
beverages
will
and things
absolutely
like
find
that
the funds
for
to
this
make
group?
sure they are well cared for and
Yeah.
well fed.
Yes, which is a good thing.
Also, I have also told Dr. Downing, if we need to transport students, I don't want any student not to be able to attend who wants to attend. We would certainly work with first student to make that happen. This is critically important. It's important for our culture. And we do want to make sure that that it is it's a hard day, but we want it to be a comfortable day.
Okay, good. Excellent.
And if people have maybe suggestions on community facilitators, you can certainly share those with Dr. Downing.
Yeah, I think that's probably the most interesting part of the whole program, is that they really lean heavily on us identifying community partners. So not teachers or administrators even from the building that the students come from, but people within the greater community that come in and facilitate group discussions. So essentially an outsider who comes in, they do get trained by the Department of Justice to run the facilitation with the groups. And I would love any and all suggestions in that regard. Michael Griffin from Greater Meredith Program's been great. He's given me a ton of suggestions on people that he thinks would be willing to facilitate. Himself and his wife are two of my volunteers at this point. So
Can you describe the training that's needed by the?
So the training, Michael, who's he's I've been working with him from the CST perspective of this. He will facilitate the training with all the facilitators. So say I get 6 community facilitators, he spends several hours kind of walking them through what the facilitation process looks like. And that's the training that the facilitator will essentially get before they're face-to-face with students and in that group. So, and they provide all of this to us free of charge. So.
Is there any role for board members if they are so inclined?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Is there any role for school board members if they are so inclined?
I think if you'd like to be involved with the student meeting day, we would love to have you there. Yeah, so I'll obviously be there that day. There's going to be other members of our school team who are not facilitating that will be there that day too. Really, it's just kind of like pump up and support. And I think that would be
Even a welcome
well
maybe from the
extended.
board in indicating that you too find this to be incredibly important work, and that that we will not tolerate racism and bigotry in our community, and that we have to work together. I think some kind of message from the board could be very powerful.
What's the date of that?
Yeah.
So the date that I don't want to misspeak, so let me just look at my calendar really quickly. I'm almost 100% confident that May 21st. Yes, May 21st is the day that we just marked down with.
And
DOJ.
so am I correct that you're basically, the 40 or 50 students are being trained to help lead this in the broader school community?
Yes, and what will come
starting next year?
Yes, what will come from that initial meeting on that Saturday will then be a site council that will be established, and then that site council. So the group of students is really going to help us talk out the issues from all of their different perspectives and really identify the goals that that we need to meet through this work. And then the site council will be established, and the site council will be responsible for bringing that work back to the student body and moving it on from there.
Is the site council a segment of that group of students or
Yes,
all of them?
It would be a segment of that group of
Okay.
students. Yeah.
Thank you.
The purpose of that large group of students is to get as big and diverse of a sampling as possible during those facilitated conversations to make sure that we're hearing as many student experiences and perspectives as we can.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Correspondence, superintendent, board secretary, board members.
I would just, sorry, go ahead, Trish.
I just wanted to let the board know that I received correspondence from Cafe Services, Fresh Picks Cafe, that our primary milk vendor, HP Hood, you may have heard this in the news, had a significant cyber attack. So we're preparing to address any needs or shortages with milk products. They produce the most 8-ounce containers of milk. So we have prepared to, if we run into any shortages, to substitute 100% juice or waters. And we have that ability through a waiver through the USDA.
Thank you. Charlie?
I just wanted to recognize our friend Riley here, who voted for the first time in Center Harbor this last election, which I think is awesome. We don't have to.
I do have a thank you note for the board that I'm a teacher. I will pass that around.
Okay, thank you. Okay, new business, 2021, 2022, end of year calendar, attachment number 8. This is Moriarty.
Knock on wood, snow is done. We seem to have found our way to get through mud. Many walking it out, but we have missed 2.5 days of school due to weather. We are looking at Saturday, June 18th is our confirmed date for graduation. So I hope you'll have an opportunity to attend that on the 18th. We would like to propose the last day for students on June 23rd as an early release, and the last day of school for staff, Friday, June 24th. I am looking for the board's approval to waive 2.5 school days for students, to waive 2 days for paraeducators, 1 day for teaching staff, and then a final closeout day for all staff on June 24th. We do meet, we exceed the standards relative to number of hours. So we do have, relative to meeting that standard, we do have some space. This would allow staff to finish on that Friday. And I think they would appreciate having an opportunity to begin summer the following week. I also know that camps and things start to get pretty revved up to get going themselves, and that helps to avoid some conflict.
Can you just repeat what's the last day for students?
So the last day for students would be Thursday, June 23rd, a half day.
Ask a question. When we waive for the paraprofessionals and staff, do we pay for those waived days?
I would be requesting that you would pay them for their time. When I look at the shortages, paras have had a very hard job. On paras, she said to me one day was, you know, they felt like they were divided into thirds to be able to meet the needs. I think, you know, the additional time off with pay would be appreciated.
Given the nature of this year, I'm sure that they've already worked more hours.
I was just gonna say the same
than they're
thing.
given back. I would move the superintendent's recommendation.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. I know that there'll be some very, very happy people tomorrow.
Okay, attachment number 9, 2022, 2023 school calendar.
So this, there's no action requested this evening. I think it's helpful to put it out there so if you have a little time to look. I would hope on the 12th of April, which I believe is our next meeting, that the board would be inclined to take action. This is very similar to this year's calendar. One thing I will note, again, the February break is falling late. This is consistent with what other school districts in the Lakes region are doing. We would make sure that the annual school district meeting would be proposed for the 6th of March so that we would have that same product. And it does have school starting on the 6th of September after Labor Day.
Change.
Okay.
Almost like when I grew up.
I know. There's, it's a little cooler too, just a hair.
Okay, American Rescue Plan, elementary and secondary school emergency relief funds 3. Proposal for use of funds for 2022, 2023 information item, attachment 10.
So this is an opportunity just to bring forward some thinking at this stage. No action is being requested this evening. The reality is we have some needs. Certainly the ESSER funds are finite, as we know. And I know that, there have been conversations regarding ventilation and possible stadium seating. I do want to at least bring some awareness to what I think are some direct student needs that I think warrant consideration. Mental health continues to be an area we are very concerned with. Mrs. Beaton is here this evening and can share a couple of highlights of what we are seeing in that area. Would you like to?
Yes, everybody. We all know that the mental health situation has really been on the forefront, I think, in the country. And so we're not immune to that. But I think since COVID, some of the shifts that I think we've directly seen here at school and in the district are things such as students gravitating towards alternate pathways, so an increase in some alternate pathways, definitely due to mental health concerns. We've seen more students utilizing spaces in guidance or other private areas to have their outside therapy appointments virtually here at school. Hard to get those appointments after 3 o'clock. I'm lucky to have an outside therapist, right? So we've been trying to definitely accommodate all of those types of things. Definitely feeling some parents asking the school counselors to take on some more therapy kind of a role while they're waiting for therapy appointments to open up in the community. Definitely have suicidal ideation on a relatively regular basis, which is unfortunate to share. So definitely have a sense that has been on the increase. The wait times locally are pretty large. Northern Human Services is our community agency for Carroll County, and they have a 3-month wait. So if I call today to get an intake to get my child in, it would take about 3 months for that process to move along. Lakes Region Mental Health in Laconia for Belknap County, a little bit better. A wait is 6 weeks to 2 months, depending. A psychiatric evaluation at Dartmouth, 7 to 9 months of a wait. So we just know that, folks, need some assistance, and we're trying to assist as we can, but we know the counselors aren't therapists, right? We know that they're short-term counselors within a school setting, right? Versus a long-term, really our obligation is to refer if they need long-term counseling and clinical type of counseling. So those are some of the areas where we've seen some changes and some shifts since COVID began. And as we know, it's been on the forefront, for all communities.
And so our thought is if we were able to hire a licensed mental health worker, they would be able to provide that therapeutic support within the school environment. We also are quite, aware that kids can't access their learning at times if they're not getting the therapeutic support that they need. And I will say that, as we've worked our way through various behaviors, we definitely have seen, that connection to really needing strong support from the mental health field. Our thought is if we were able to advertise for a position and hire somebody, it may be somebody who wants to leave an intense therapeutic environment and, take the year, this would be a grant funded for 1 year. So we may attract somebody. This is an estimated amount. We looked at a higher degree of degree, so it's higher on the scale in terms of experience, and budgeted that in terms of what that might look like. So that's why you have an estimated amount of 131. So again, that is an area when we met as an administrative team to talk about like what are we seeing as needs. This was a top priority across the board. So that was, special education, each building principal, guidance, curriculum, mental health, that's number one. We do have the youth behavior risk survey coming up. And when does that take place?
Yeah, so the survey was completed this fall.
That's right. Okay. We don't have the results
No.
back.
No.
It will be interesting to see what the results of that. That's a survey that is done every other year. It gives us some baseline. So we are waiting to get those results back to see if that gives us some other, points of, to indicate the level of need. But I wanted to bring that forward. The next for the board to be thinking about is next year for grade 9 for math. This year, if you recall, we took 9th grade and we gave them a full year of math, double dose, full year of 90 minutes, basically, 5 days a week. The current 9th grade and the current 8th grade, I would say, were two classes particularly impacted by our scheduling for cohorting. That really, we had trimesters and block scheduling for math. But I think, math is, quite frankly, it really is learned over a longer period of time, and, condensing it and making it longer within that condensed time frame. The students are definitely have unfinished learning, and the additional time, I think, would help to close that gap. The students currently in the 9th grade are performing well based on their current grades. So it seems to be having a level of impact, and one that I think should be considered to do for the current 8th grade for next year. Our ILES, we did talk recently, grade 4 is an intense grade. Considerable amount of effort has been put in to help close some gaps for them. We are making some strides. We've had the benefit of an extra special education teacher for that grade, as well as an extra class size reduction teacher this year. It is a large class. It is
75 to 80.
Yeah. So and that's only at ILES. So that is a large group for ILES. And so, consideration of some additional support, that some of that might depend on what our numbers look like for kindergarten. We might be able to shift some help from kindergarten to 4th grade. It's hard to predict at this stage what our incoming kindergarten class will look like. The next one is being able to offer an additional section of Read 180. Read 180 is for students who are struggling with reading at the high school level. We have been very fortunate. We have a retired teacher who, quite frankly, is a great buy because we don't pay all the other pieces. We're not paying retirement, we're not paying health insurance and so forth, and has been trained in Read 180. Especially where we have a new reading specialist that will be hired. This individual has some good institutional knowledge that would be nice to be able to take advantage of, and that allows sections to address other English-related needs. So I wanted to at least begin a conversation with the board. I know it's a substantial amount, but those are definitely things that we are seeing as areas that need support. And, in another month, we might know more, as kids are growing and learning every day, and they change, and we might have more information next month.
We've talked about the licensed mental health worker as a short-term position. I know other public arenas, police and fire do a lot of this now. Is bringing that person in as a full-time equivalent with benefits the right solution? Or is an independent contractor a possible better solution?
And that is certainly a possibility. I will say, we have, right now, I will say, Dr. Phil Sanguidoci, or as we like to refer to him as Dr. Phil. He is a psychologist. He's a clinical psychologist who does contracted work for us. He's retired. He worked for Plymouth Regional High School for a number of years. He is absolutely incredible, and we are very fortunate. He has provided, for some contracted services for us. He does not do therapy, but he did make a therapy connection for us with Growing Roots from Plymouth. And we have been contracting some service with them for kids that we have quite frankly needed. We've had kids in crisis and have needed to fill that gap. So that is a possibility too, to look at it a different way. I would like to say this is short term. I am hoping that mental health all around improves. But it is, it is certainly, I think, an area we have to be very cognizant of. And it may be a contracted service we need for, or a position. But we can certainly, I think, take the next month and be, look at those options and try to explore them further.
It gives you more flexibility as to who might be interested in the position.
Is there any challenge with using ESSER funds through contracted services that have been easier? So there's no.
Yeah, mental health is definitely contracted service. They want, I would say it is a high priority from the federal level and the state level relative to ESSER funds.
Right.
So I don't see an issue, whether it's a contracted service or if it's, the other piece of it is, if families have insurance, some of that, in Medicaid and so forth, there are different ways, possibly funds being recouped. That takes a level of management, and we do have a company that does that for us, but it is also paperwork and things like that that have to be in place, and so that we can get those expenses back. So I think there's some opportunity to look at it in different ways. I guess it's the reality, it's an area that needs addressing, and we can certainly come up with maybe some different ways to possibly address it and bring that back in April.
I can't imagine that the need for mental health support is going to go away after a year. I hope you're right, but I can't imagine that that's true. I'm also wondering if the Spirit program has a mental health component to it. I think a lot of what we're seeing is kids acting out because they just don't know how to, they're saying, look at me, they're provoking something. I just think there is a mental health component to this, and I'm wondering whether that program has some of that built in.
So what I can share is that the students, what the purpose of this program is for students to take the leadership role in facilitating conversations and coming up with solutions to some of these problems. So while there's a possibility that I think organically out of that will come some ways for us to help kind of bolster student mental health, I'm not sure that the program is deep enough to the point of to task student leadership with that type of responsibility. I mean, I can certainly follow up with Michael and ask him if there are other components within the DOJ that address something like this, but typically this program is more, I would say, behavioral and reflective in nature than it is necessarily therapeutic. Doesn't mean that we won't identify some problems that we could then maybe beef up a little bit in the mental health area elsewhere, but I'm not quite sure that the fit is there.
Yeah. Maybe it's just the recognition that some of what we're seeing has a massive component to it.
And I agree with you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I recall during the budgeting process that the discussion of ESSER funds at one point centered around whether or not the funds committed us in the future, both in fact limiting our flexibility, primarily limiting our flexibility. Do any of these funds commit us beyond a year's time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And again, I think that this is some beginning conversation. It is March 22nd. We are doing some additional assessments. Hopefully we'll have some additional information that the youth risk behavior survey would be helpful. I think it will help us to shape things better for April, but I wanted to at least put it out on the table that these are areas as we sit and we look and we plan, that these are areas we're worried about.
Go ahead,
Sure.
Craig.
Just some comments from me. I guess I don't disagree with the positions and the way we're going about it. If this goes through, I would like to know more about, the mental health worker and how we plan to manage that whole role and make sure the students are knowing about this opportunity, right, and using it correctly, as well as the management. We're adding staff members here, and I just want to make sure that we understand that the management staff of the school will be taxed as well as we add people. So we have to understand how that component works with this as well before we move too far along.
Need any action tonight?
Not this evening. I just wanted to make sure the board was aware of where our thinking is at this stage and where our areas of concern are. And as I said, I hope more will evolve between now and April.
Okay. Moving along on the agenda, exchange students from the Cultural Homestay International Organization. And that will,
If you would like to speak about specific students, that should probably be a non-public, but you do have, you did receive in your packet 2 students, one from Thailand and one from Japan, which is exciting. And we have had very good success with the Cultural Homestay organization. I think it was a few years ago that we started working with them. Previous to that, it had primarily been Rotary International, but they have really, I think, done a very nice job. We feel very comfortable that they have good processes in place and that they support students. So I would encourage the board to approve accepting these 2 exchange students.
I have one. Duncan, second. Okay.
I don't know if the board would consider, you did receive an additional one from Rotary International this evening.
Yes.
Okay, you have the additional information on the students.
No, I think we have that.
I'm sorry? Oh,
It's
it's,
in
okay.
non-public.
I do have it. It's actually in the non-public portion. If you'd like to look at it now, and if you have questions, you could go into non-public, or if you would like to do it in non-public, that is certainly up to you. We didn't have a chance. This came in after the agenda went out.
Maybe we should do it in non-public and then come back in public.
Do you want to deal with the ones that were moved?
Yes.
Do we vote on the ones that are moved?
I think we should vote on the ones that we moved and then do the other one in non.
Yeah.
Okay, are we ready to vote? All those in favor of the 2? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Donations, attachments 11 through 19. You want me to read them or would you like to? Oh, go ahead, Howard.
Regressing again to my childhood. $13,696.66.
Wow.
That's over $22,000 with the previous month. Absolutely amazing.
Yes. Okay. Shall I just list them all or?
Would you like me to read them?
Yeah,
or
you
what
can
would
read them.
Donations to Sandwich Central School and Interlakes Elementary School, $2,000 from White Sylvania Trust in Sandwich for program enhancements and field experiences at Sandwich Central School. $489.66 from Interlakes PTO to purchase Ellison Surecut dies for the Ellison die cutting machine at Interlakes Elementary School.
That's 4,000.
4, 8, and 6.
You missed
It's $489.66. We did revise.
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
think
Okay.
that would be a very expensive machine. I think our decimal point was originally in the wrong spot. It's $489.66.
Okay.
And again, very appreciative to the PTO for all they do to support our schools. Donations for the Interlakes Middle High School robotics team, 500 from the Milton Borough Lions Club, 500 from the Meredith Rotary Club, 500 from Community Foundation of St. Clair County, 2,000 from Meredith Village Savings Bank, 2,000 from Trinity Episcopal Church of Meredith. Donations for the Interlakes Middle High School after prom, $300 from Meredith Farm Growers, $250 from Hayward and Company, $250 from Thomas and Son Artisan Well Company, and $500 from Meredith Rotary Club.
Okay, thank you.
Do those just fall into our lap? Or, I mean, it seems like robotics is lengthy every single month.
What I will say is that Mr. Derek, I think, has done a really good job reaching out and making contacts. And I will say people, have helped to keep that going. So he is active in terms of getting community support for the program.
Excellent. Thank you.
And we do have a committee for after prom that is run by volunteers. And they have been actively working all year and have sent letters, and there's a lot of personal contact being made as well. I believe in the Laconia Daily Sun today, there's a full page ad for I think they have like an auction for
The
baskets.
silent auction began yesterday and it will close on the 27th. Yep. And I have a link to send to faculty.
So,
Anybody care to make the motion to
I'll move
accept
to
the
approve it.
donations? Charlie, second, anybody?
Nancy?
Nancy? All those in favor of accepting the
Great.
donations with thanks?
Yes.
Policy, no action. Okay, we're going down to additional business.
You're gonna go back to your agenda.
Oh, that's right. Okay. So under new business, we have that exchange student from Rotary that we're gonna talk about in non-public.
perfect.
And then nomination of professional teaching staff for 2022-2023 school year.
So
So-
certainly the board can do that in
I think-
non-public.
I think we would do that
If you
in
want to
non-
look at the list first, and then the same thing for the administrative.
Yep. I have some questions, but I don't know. So non-public, I would like to go into, I don't know about anybody else.
It just frees us up.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going into non-public then? or should we
You want to
finish
finish
this?
public input? Yeah.
There's the second.
There's a public input. Any public input?
Yes,
Yes, go
I have
ahead,
a
Karen.
couple of things. First, I'm glad you mentioned the auction. I've already been to it. I hope the link goes out on the internet. They've got great prizes. It's a lot of fun. And how much do they already have in their fund?
We don't have that with me at this point. We can certainly, I look
get
that up.
that.
I'm
Figure right now.
curious because I know the board put 15,000 in for prom and nonprofit. I mean, after prom.
And graduation, 15,000
Yeah.
towards the end of the
Yeah.
year.
Yep. And the other thing is, I was listening, pretty interested in this position for mental health. And just to piggyback off something Mark Billings said, that not everybody connects with the same way with just one individual. And I was wondering if there was any possibility to structure it as a team approach somewhat. Because, and using PSU, PSU has an amazing psychology department, but they also have art therapy as a major and a minor. They have music therapy, and that might be something completely different that students could connect with. And also younger people might, like I love Dr. Phil. Phil and Janet Sangradolsi are amazing, and and they're both musicians, and I'm sure he brings a lot of that into it. But it might be interesting to have like a grad student or do internship, try to arrange something for the whole year since the funding is for a one-year project. But it just ran through my head as you were talking about it, that not everybody connects with just one person.
It's a very good point. And having some choice is always, I think, a good thing, particularly with counselors.
Yeah.
Any other questions,
Not from this end.
comments? Okay. All right. So we are going to be going into non-public now.
You want to do the announcements?
Oh, the announcements, yes. Rusty today. So the announcements, Tuesday, April 12th, 2022 is the Interlakes School Board meeting at the auditorium. Policy Review Committee will meet at 5:30 and regular school board meeting at 6 p.m. And Tuesday, May 10th, Interlakes School Board at the auditorium, Policy Review Committee at 5:30 and regular school board meeting at 6 p.m. Okay.
Do you suspect we're gonna stay with the auditorium or go back to the Coniston?
One of the things that Mrs. Merrill and I talked about possibly is maybe rotating through libraries. Just a chance to get into the different schools as a possibility. It does allow a little more space. The Humiston is a little challenged if we have a crowd. But certainly, that's up to the board. I think from a COVID standpoint, the auditorium was put in place primarily, because of mitigation. But where we are at a very healthy point for COVID, it seems like having a different environment might be beneficial.
It's just a little more of a relaxed feeling
Yes,
at the
it is.
SAU. The people in the audience were right there in the auditorium. You can't.
Well, we don't have to social distance like we did before.
Oh, I see. I think we just carried it on so that this does say maybe it's to be determined.
I like that.
Right, to be determined.
And just to also share with the board, the OWL, we have tested it and it is a good live stream so that we are continuing the live stream option for families.
Okay, perfect.
Great.
Okay. Non-public or under RSA 91A:3B and C, the hiring of any person as a public employee and matters which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of the public body itself, unless such a person requests an open meeting. So, yes, Howard?
So moved. I'll second.
Okay. We poll the board.
Oh, let me poll the board.
Yes.
Mr.
I know.
Billings?
Yes.
Ms. Merrill?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Porter Zucker?
Yes.
Ms. Camber? Mr. Baker?
Yes.
And I am also yes.
Okay.
This is an incredibly comfortable rocking
I was
chair.
gonna say, I've been watching you all night going, I love
Grab it. Put it on your back.